My name is Jason Howell, and I am the Executive Director of Recovery People. In celebration of Recovery Month, Recovery People annually recognizes individuals who've made significant contributions towards supporting recovery from substance use and related mental health challenges. One of those awards is our Media Award of the Year. Media Award of the Year honors an individual who's made outstanding contributions in print, radio, podcast, video, film, television, social media, and/or online publications that provide information to the general public about substance use and related mental health challenges. Award recipients must demonstrate leadership in their respective media areas by accurately portraying individuals and/or affected family members in recovery. Responsibly use persons or affected family members in recovery as a resource. Decrease stigma, increase understanding or awareness, spread hope of recovery, and/or effectively communicate the impact of policy decisions, and demonstrate accomplishments that reflect Recovery People's mission, vision, and values. I am very excited to announce Greg William as the recipient of our 2022 Media Award of the Year. Greg has over a decade of experience working with nonprofits and government agencies on addiction. As a person in long-term recovery from addiction himself, Greg's work has been dedicated to creating positive changes in access to quality care and recovery support for over 40 million Americans with substance use disorder. In 2015, he executive produced the historic Unite to Face Addiction rally on the National Mall, where tens of thousands of people from around the world gathered alongside major musicians to end the silence surrounding addiction. He also produced the 2016 launch event of the first ever Surgeon General's report on alcohol, drugs, and health. You may have heard of it, Facing Addiction in America, as well as the 2021 Recover Out Loud concert event in participation with Google, iHeartRadio, and Variety. In addition to this long list of credits, Greg is also an award-winning filmmaker and producer of 3 feature-length documentaries. One, The Anonymous People, followed by Generation Found, and his latest, Tipping the Pain Scale. Tipping the Pain Scale is a feature documentary film which follows individuals grappling with the current systemic failures of how we deal with addiction in communities and their journey to develop, employ new, innovative, and sometimes controversial solutions to the problems. It features Secretary of Labor Marty Walsh, NFL pro ball player Darren Waller, spoken word artist and educator Joseph Green, Washington State Representative Lauren Davis, community outreach volunteer Ross Pichardo, and Boston police officer Josh De La Rosa. Greg, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it. And it's a privilege to be hanging out with you on Zoom. And it's the first time I ever got an award on Zoom.
You know, one of the things that I noticed in watching your film is that you highlighted individuals who found ways to make a difference. And, I definitely see you as, somebody that's trying to make it, or not trying, making a difference out there. And film is just one of the ways that you're doing that. How did you come to filmmaking?
Yeah, well, it's it was really intentional in Tipping the Pain Scale for Jeff Riley, who's the director, and I to highlight individuals who found their calling, and were impacting change at different sectors of society. Because I think when at the broadest scale, when you think about this issue and you think about all the things that need to be fixed and how broken it is, when we're losing 100,000 Americans a year, there's so many different things that need to be fixed, and people need to get involved in different ways. And so, for me personally, it was a journey. I had gotten very passionate about filmmaking and storytelling in high school. I had a high school teacher and got, just loved the camera, loved the storytelling and all of that. This is, before they had cameras on cell phones and stuff where everybody is a filmmaker. But so you needed an actual camera to point and shoot at people. And then, as the adage goes, I started using drugs and alcohol, and then I got high, and that really took me away from, that particular passion, and nearly cost me my life. But as I entered recovery, and went back to school, I went to college after I was a year into my recovery. One of those things that kind of came up for me in early recovery was that passion for storytelling. And so I ended up doing my entire college career. I wasn't involved in recovery advocacy or this field at all. I did my entire college career in the media production departments of a couple of universities, and learn the trade. My first job was actually where I met Jeff Riley. Was at a post-production house in Stamford, Connecticut. And we worked on a lot of sports stuff, and we worked on a lot of History Channel stuff, all sorts of kinds of just general media production stuff. And so it was kind of, that was my basis. So as I left college, my first job was in a post-production house, and I worked alongside Jeff Riley, who became my partner on all three of these films. And and we were doing a lot of sports stuff and History Channel stuff. And a couple of years into that job, I met some folks in the state of Connecticut who were doing some advocacy work for young people and families. And they kind of found out that I did some filmmaking stuff, and they were like, "Oh, we're trying to tell these stories." And so I kind of freelanced on the side, and made a couple short films for some folks. And I really realized, that my access as a person in recovery, my ability to tell the story in a different way than the way that traditional reality TV or shows like that would tell the story, and taking a different frame on it. And so my unique access, and then my unique frame on it, kind of presented an opportunity. And so I developed this passion, and ultimately was going to go get my master's degree after some encouragement. And I found a place where I could start making the anonymous people, or explore that construct while I was getting my master's degree, in case this filmmaking thing never went anywhere. So
Right.
making sure that I had some ability to fall back on. So that's kind of the journey, the genesis. And then, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I think it's Bill White says this, and in the Anonymous People, or at least in the interview for the Anonymous People, and he said to me, I could show you all the pictures of the brain, I could show you all the statistics, I could show you all the research, but nothing's going to change about your opinion about me or people like me until it hits close to home, or you emotionally connect with our stories. And it was that call to action. Tom Coderre said, you got to find the drama in recovery. And it was those kind of calls to action from leaders in our movement that really drove me to want to experiment and try to find the drama in recovery, try to find the emotional heart of this issue.
Amazing. That's awesome. So so you started talking about your first film, The Anonymous People, and then your second film was Generation Found. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was, some folks in the Houston community. I had, as I got into the advocacy world, I never went to recovery high school. I never went to a collegiate recovery program, but I did enter recovery at 17. And so when I met individuals who had graduated from those programs, and had experienced those programs, I became kind of infatuated with them. And I'm like, why didn't I get that? Or why aren't there more of them? And why doesn't my state have any of that? And quickly led me to Texas, and some folks, had reached out, and they were like, "You want to do like a sequel to The Anonymous People?" And I'm like, "Well, I don't know if documentaries really have sequels, but I'm intrigued, and what you guys are doing in Houston is fascinating to me, but I have no money. Like these documentary things are expensive.
No doubt, no
And I
doubt.
was still kind of recovering from Anonymous People and the debt that came behind that. And they were like, "Oh, well, we have a lot of foundations and charities down here that might want to contribute to telling our story." And I said, "Okay, well, if you guys are gonna help find the resources to make it, I'm in." And Jeff Riley was in to direct it, and we found this great two individuals from LA who embedded themselves in the Houston community and the Houston philanthropic community and the larger Texas community and the state even contributed to making that film. It was a privilege, and more importantly, it was the impact that it's had for me as somebody from Connecticut or other blue states, if you will, going to Texas to show what they're doing for recovery in Texas that we're not doing in many of these other states. And so it was really powerful in that regard for me to be able to share that. But I mean, the story and the film and the number of schools that have sprung up in its image is really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was great seeing Texans highlighted on the screen. And then we come to your latest film, tipping the pain scale. And obviously we've got the opiate epidemic, as the backdrop and really kind of, there's actually quite a few films out there, a lot of them really focus in on the pain and the drama with and less solution. I really appreciated that you're pointing to individuals that are part of the solution. How did you come to this particular project?
Yeah, we got approached. Jeff and I got approached by our executive producer Tim Grant out of South Carolina, and he really wanted to impact kind of stigma and people's perception of the issue. And Jeff and I, obviously, having been deep in the field, wanted to do something that folks hadn't done or hadn't seen on the opioid epidemic.
Right.
And I think a lot of there's two I think really important differences. One is to your point that we focused on hope and solution and what can be done. And the other part I think that's really important and was really intentional for us is wanting to highlight people of color as leaders in
Yes.
this movement and in the change that needs to come. So many of our films and especially in the opioid doc space have been very white in the last decade or so, and it was really important for Jeff and I to highlight leaders of color and in different sectors. And so we wanted to get at this issue because feature documentary film allows you to get nuanced and allows you to not be in a soundbite culture or clickbait culture, right? Of 2 minutes or 30 seconds or a TikTok video.
Right.
And feature documentary film really allows that format to get at some real substance. And so what we wanted to do is try to find layers of society that need to be impacted and need to be changed, and then highlight characters who are doing that work in a way to potentially inspire other folks to pick up the mantle in domains that make sense for them. So as you said, we have this cultural icon who's at the top of the NFL tight end universe, Darren Waller, who's impacting culture on a broad scale to the NFL community. We have Marty Walsh, who was the mayor of Boston when we were filming most of him. And it became, one of the first people publicly in recovery in a presidential cabinet. And now he's in charge of enforcement of mental health parity and addiction equity. I mean,
How great is that? Yeah.
Well, coincidentally, we had our first ever DOL report on parity. It's like, in his first year, like it's not an accident that a person in recovery takes over that role. And we've had a law on the books for nearly 15 years.
Right.
And now we have our first report on that law and the enforcement of that law. These things are not coincidental. And then Lauren Davis and what she's doing at the state legislature in a very bipartisan state legislature in Washington State, and Joseph Green, what he does in schools, and the kind of early intervention prevention work that needs to happen in our school systems, for all students. And then certainly Officer De La Rosa and Ross Picardo and what they're doing, kind of extending the continuum of care. I think that piece is really an emerging field,
Yeah.
this outreach and engagement, and responding to people who are in crisis in different ways than we've ever responded to them before. So that stuff is some of the most compelling components, but really trying to highlight change at different levels.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes. So, and so many each story is amazing, and then seeing the breadth of it all together was super compelling. So thank you for doing that. So
Yeah,
where can people?
and I know I get a lot of credit, but Jeff Riley, this award is I'm on the Zoom. I should have invited Jeff to join me, but to receive this award, he's really the brilliant storyteller who creates the weave. I help find the access and the overarching story, but Jeff is the artist who makes you cry, makes you laugh, makes you feel something for these individuals. And he's one of the most talented storytellers in the documentary space,
Well,
period.
he got me because I did cry. I'm not a big crier, but he did get me. So
Yes.
thank you to him, and I'll make sure that we recognize him in our blog and as we push this out.
Thank you.
Where can people see your films? How can they see Tipping the Pain Scale?
Well, we just did release it on home video, where people can go on Amazon or Google or Apple, and find their platform of choice at home. You can see those links at tippingthepainscale.com. But we really want to encourage organizations like yours and others to continue to screen it, because I mean, these kind of films deserve a conversation. They deserve that space and time, that the energy that they create. I mean, Jeff and I don't envision some of these films and people watching it on their couch, turning it off, going to sleep, waking up the next day and doing, we want it's to elicit some kind of action. We want people to want to do something, and that happens largely in community screening events. And so the vast majority of people probably will see this film, hopefully with prevention, treatment, harm reduction, recovery organizations, in the criminal justice settings, in treatment settings, in school-based settings. And so we really encourage the ability to have that dialogue, because this issue is just so personal to so many people. We want people, when they feel compelled to do something, to have an organization, to have a community to plug into and take an action.
Excellent. Well, you have a commitment from Recovery People that we will be doing some local screenings. We did it with anonymous people, and that generated, really good dialogue around advocacy. We did some with Generation Found, but thinking about, tipping the pain scale, and partnering with, Texas is a really big state. So we need to have multiple and partner with those strong local communities, do some film screenings, and then having that community conversation afterwards. Recovery is all about community. And so I could see these film screenings, bringing us together and thinking about how we can change policy, how we can each make a difference.
Well, thank you so much. And they're independent films. We don't have a big marketing budget, if a marketing budget at all. So we rely on organizations like yours and others to spread the project, because our media, the powers that be in the media industry, still haven't totally embraced the recovery story in the way that we wanted to be intentional about telling it.
And again, congratulations for being our 2022 Media Award winner. And thank you so much for what you do.
Thank you, Jason. It's a pleasure and great to be hanging out with the folks in Texas again.